All right, welcome everybody to Real Brothers Live, Real Brothers for the Real World, and welcome to our digital neighborhood. I'm TL, and that's my man Stace.
What's up, y'all?
Hey, Stace, go ahead and give us the topics for the week, Black, and let's see what we got.
All right. So while I run down the topics, Night, don't forget to share the link in the group chat.
Okay, yeah, and by the way, let me also let you know that we got a special guest on tonight.
Special guest. Right.
Special guest. The Jolly Good Ginger. He's a guy that has a lot of following on the internet because of his views. And, we want to welcome the brother to the show when he gets on and give him some love.
Right. And with Jolly Good Ginger, we're going to be discussing CRT, which is critical race theory. It's been in the news a lot lately because we'll dig into it a little further, but it's getting a lot of play. So we want to talk to him, see what he thinks, get his feedback on it. Looks like this is him coming on. Last three topics we're going to discuss is domestic terrorism and the government. Looks like he's there, Nike.
All right.
Disciplining step parents. And also, we're going to be discussing why whitewash history. So those are the topics. And as we said, y'all, right now joining us is Jolly
Good Ginger. What's up, bro?
What's going on, guys? I appreciate you having me.
What's up, man? How you doing?
No doubt.
Nothing to complain about, I guess.
Glad you joined us, man. First thing I want to, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? And I've been checking out your videos online, and you've been kind of blowing up with your ideas and your views and everything.
Yeah. So, I went. I guess TikTok famous.
Yeah.
Last year, I've been talking about race and social issues for 20 years, right? And I was, I've been doing it online since probably about 2010 when Facebook came along, and it was mostly just, debating with my, family and friends that I know. But that's just it's always been something I talk passionately about. Well, last year, I decided I was kind of tired of going back and forth with the same old talking points. You know how I always say that the difference between a racist and a parrot, one has a small mind and can't think for themselves and just repeats everything they hear, and the other one's a bird. And all
right.
And so they just say the same thing over and over, and I get tired of debating them, and so I decided I was going to make these 1-minute videos on YouTube, and anytime that online these people were spitting the same rhetoric, I would just copy and paste the link. Hey, go watch that.
Right.
And TikTok had just kind of came to my attention because of the pandemic. You know what I mean? And I was like, hey, I'll test it out on this new app, TikTok. It's 1-minute videos anyway. And I put this video up, and boom, overnight, it's got like I think overnight it was a little over 1 million views, and then. Within the first 24 hours, there was like 20 million views. And then I got 100,000 subscribers on TikTok that I wasn't even planning on using. I was like, and so, yeah. So then my kind of social media presence increased, obviously. I actually got to 900,000 subscribers before TikTok permanently banned my account, which is a whole story by itself. But I use this.
They ban you because of the numbers or because of the content?
I would get content violations a lot. Not that I was actually violating any community guidelines. It's just mass reporting by, troll Trumpers and conservatives and people who, got their feelings hurt, essentially.
Okay. All right. So I have a question for you.
Yeah.
I watched the video when you interviewed the two doctors. It was a link that Terry sent to me earlier. Right. And you talked a little bit about your background. Can you kind of go let the folk know a little something about your background, but also what brought you to this? How did you get to this point? Because it sounded like when you were interviewing the doctors, you didn't start out here. So how did you make that transition from where you were to where you are?
So I'll give you the kind of the Reader's Digest version, right? But I was born in the mountains, North Carolina. Confederate flag in the front yard. N-word that's casual language, where I grew up. Racism was very prevalent and prominent, and you don't know it's racism. Okay, you don't identify that as racism. That's just our way of life. The little neck of the woods I grew up in, would be considered a sundown town, which I wouldn't know that until later that was a thing. I just thought that was how things were.
Oh, sundown! Like
Okay.
for people who don't know what a sundown town is,
right?
That's when black folks was required to be wherever they're going to be before the sun came down.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, we've seen people get chased out of town, and like guys dating girls or something, or dropping off, and get chased out of town kind of stuff. But, you get so used to that as a child, that's normal, Anyway, the unique part of my story, I guess, that you have to know that kind of sets everything else up. My dad and my mom divorced when I was 3. And, my mom remarried to a black guy, which is what's so interesting about it. And
okay.
My dad was already pretty racist. I mean, raised in the same area and taught the same ideas. But there's this trope, and everybody's heard it, that black men are out to steal white women, and that's always been like, the KKK used that in the birth of a nation as the primary concept as to why we should be afraid of black men, and right, exactly. And so when my mom remarried to a black man, well, that's now what everybody on the mountain saying to my dad. She left you for a black man. Now, they didn't say black man, you understand, but that just emboldened and deepened his own racism and validated the stereotype that black men are out to get my women. So anyway, they went to court, and the court actually granted custody to my dad, which is highly unusual, in the 80s. But my mom being remarried to a black man, court wasn't giving her custody. It just wasn't happening. So my dad got custody of me, and I didn't see my mom after that. Right. So my dad, he raised me, and he instilled in me his own values, and those included, hey, the marriage that your mom is in, that is ungodly. Okay. That is not, God doesn't approve of that. Let me show you in the Bible where it says that. And
he showed you that in the Bible?
Mm-hmm.
Or what do you believe that to be in the Bible?
Correct. This is very common down south. So like you hear it so much.
What passage in the Bible says that? Is that the one where there shouldn't be unequally yoked or something like that?
They use most common people in the South use the story of Moses marrying a Gentile lady as proof that God doesn't want you to marry outside your own race, which is a complete bastardization of that story. Right. But anyway, that's how I believed it, because he told me, and he said, because God doesn't approve of their marriage, then their children are also bastards, right? And so, that was my belief. Well, me being 10 years old, my mom took it to court to get visitation rights of me. Now I was vehemently against this because I hated her. Right? I had
you were poisoned. You were poisoned.
100,000%. Right. And so went to court, and the judge did agree to let her have visitation rights of me, and that kind of was the catalyst to the whole thing, because I made it my mission that if she was going to have custody of me, that I was going to make her hate me so much that she wouldn't do it. Right. Like my whole thing was, if I go over there and make her hate me, she won't pick me up again. Right. And so that's what I did. My very first visitation with her, I was very rude, very mean. I called her children N-words, called her the N-word lover, or, all kinds of stuff. And so yeah, it just was, I'll take a side note. I don't know if y'all can hear that, but the music's popping in and out a little bit.
Yeah. I just loud.
Okay.
Okay.
Hey, but anyway, well,
I thought it was just me. I guess it's not. So
yeah.
No.
So
I loaded that.
Fast forward, to from when you was a child. So one of the things racism is a learned behavior, correct?
Correct. Absolutely.
And that's what you were saying, that your dad had like.
Yeah, so I was taught to be racist, right? I was taught, and so when I met my mom, I was racist to her and her, but not. I wasn't racist to her children. I hadn't met them yet on the first visitation. But 2 weeks later, she came back and picked me up, and I couldn't believe it. I was like, "Oh my God!" I was so mean to her. I called her the N-word lover. Called her children N-word. She won't come pick me up. She did, and that visitation, I met my brothers and sisters, and that kind of was that turning point.
Really?
I wanted to be mean to them, and I wanted to, lash out at them. And I was obviously the oldest, but I couldn't bring myself to do it.
Wow.
And so they came out. They were all happy to see me because they had heard so many good things about me from their mom, our mom. And so I just was polite to them. I wasn't nice, but I was polite. And then every 2 weeks I would go back, and I got to know them and their friends. They live in an all-black neighborhood, so all their friends were black. And now I was at this crossroads where do I believe what my dad's been telling me my whole life, or what's right before front of my eyes?
So critical thinking. You mentioned that in the podcast, that even talking about this theory, that's what it boils down to. Being able to think critically and question yourself and your own beliefs. And that was the crossroads where you were. You were taught something, and now you were being shown something else. So do you believe your lying eyes, or do you kind of accept what you're being seen? So you
have to make a choice.
You have to make a choice, right?
Do I disassociate from what I'm seeing and believe, what I was told, or do I just accept what's in front of my eyes?
Right.
And I chose the latter, obviously, and then that kind of turned into me exploring my own racial identity, but I was doing that alone because I didn't have the relationship with my mother to speak to her on it. I didn't trust her. I mean, obviously, I was going from hating her to maybe not hating her. So anyway, I wasn't asking her opinion. Obviously, I'm not asking my dad's opinion. So I was kind of alone. And what I did, just kind of looking for an answer, was I found myself listening to a lot of or watching a lot of videos and listening to a lot of speeches from the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, that kind of stuff. And I would read their literature. And reading it just all made sense. Like, if you just go into it, like, let me just listen to what you got to say without a preconceived notion, it's really startling. I'll tell you a story, and this is like, people ask me all the time, what was that turning point? One of the biggest eye-opening holy shit moments for me, and it seems so small, but it was huge for me, was I was watching Malcolm X be interviewed on TV, and the reporter continually asked him, "Hey, what was your real last name? What was your last name at birth?"
I knew you were going to say that. Right.
Yeah. And he kept saying, "I don't know my last name." And, the reporter was trying to force him to say his birth name, and Malcolm X refused to say it. But what stood out to me was when he said, we don't have a family name. My family name was given to me by our slave masters. That knocked me out of my seat. I grew up in the South. I grew up where I was told, your family name is everything. You carry on your family name. This was literally part of our value system.
Right.
We were told that, well, no matter what you do, make the family proud. No matter what you do, carry on the family name, make the family better than it was the generation. This was our value system, and it meant a lot to me because that's how I was raised.
So then to hear Malcolm X talk about not
got a family name,
his name, exactly. It like you said, that was startling.
Right.
That was startling.
It was the day that I realized there's two Americas. And it just it really floored me. Like, it just really sent me into this kind of in my own head, let me think, like, how does this make sense? And then you read more and you study more and you start realizing, holy shit, like, I've really been living in a bubble.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's kind of the issue. Like, people don't experience other cultures.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
correct. Or outside their own damn neighborhood.
Right. Absolutely. Right.
Yep. So ignorance is what drives a lot of this, like racism, and it's all mostly ignorance. If you if you break it down,
and willful ignorance, and that's one of the things that one of our buddies always talks about. The fact that the information is out there. See, when you came to your crossroads, you made a decision. You said, "Wait a minute, now maybe what I thought I knew, I didn't know, or maybe it was incorrect."
Right.
So you made a change. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't do that. They get to that crossroad and they say, well, no, that they
That
deny.
can't be right. Yeah,
That
right.
can't be
They in
right.
denial
They're in
when they get
denial.
to
Right.
that point.
Right. So
Right.
now, as it comes then to you and your experience with critical race theory, how did that come about, and how do people respond to you in this conversation? Like,
Well, first of all, Stace, let's go over
the
what
abridged version,
critical race theory is
right?
for
The
people
abridged
who's
version,
listening and don't. I know this term is thrown around a lot,
but what it
but
actually
And
is,
mostly
what
misunderstood.
actually is it?
right?
Right. Well, I mean, and you mentioned the show I did with the doctors. They put it pretty nicely. Dr. Jones said it is a lens through which we can
Correct. Right.
analyze systems. That's
That's
all
right.
it is.
That's right.
In
True.
its simplest form, that's it. Now, initially, critical race theory was applied to the analysis of laws. Because that's a conversation I can have a 12-hour conversation with you on,
Right.
about the legal history of America and how the laws are, a lot of them are essentially based out of racism, et cetera, et cetera. But they've taken critical race theory out of the legal mind and started analyzing other areas as well, like education, like our history. The we call it whitewash history. So critical race theory is nothing more than a lens that allows us to analyze things through the lens of race. That's it. And like Dr. Jones said on the show, we don't know what the outcome is going to be, but we need to analyze it honestly.
Absolutely.
Right,
Honestly.
right.
That's the key word.
Right.
Honestly.
And we have a topic on the show tonight that's going to address a little bit of, well, we have a question like of whitewashing history.
Right. Now, another question for you then. Why do, in your experience, and I think the advantage that you have is that you can understand both sides, because people are going to address you by what they see. You're a white guy from the mountains of North Carolina. And as you said on the podcast, with an accent, exactly. With the ZZ Hill going
I'm a
on.
ZZ Top beard, yeah.
ZZ Top, right, ZZ Top. So how do people respond to you when I'm sure they have one perception and say certain things, and then when you respond the way that you do, how do they take that? You know what I mean? How does that? How
Well,
is
it
that?
depends on who it is, right? So, what's unique is the Black community is very welcoming of the idea of, man, this guy, listens. Because here's one thing I make it my mission. I never, ever, ever, and I've made it, I've done this since I was 20 years old, made this one thing a rule. I do not speak about, over, or for the Black community.
Absolutely. None of us does. Right.
Right. And I don't either.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
But I mean, I couldn't, even if I tried. I'm not Black, never will be Black. I can't speak on the experiences. I was on a podcast here a few months ago. It's a bigger platform. Guy has a couple million viewers and whatnot. And we were there to talk about the Confederate flag, because I hate that, that rag. And that's kind of what the debate was. And right away, within 5 minutes, he says to me, hey, because I was talking about banning the Confederate flag in America. He was like, don't you think there's better ways to help the Black community? I said, pause. So what you and I are not going to do, two white guys, we're not going to discuss what helps the Black community. We're not in the Black community. We don't understand. Like, we're not Black. So we're not going to talk about that. But he kept wanting to talk about it. This is the problem with white people. White people want to talk about problems in Black communities, solutions to Black community. Me, I forced the topic of problems in white America, solutions in white America, what white America is doing, has been doing, and needs to change.
Right.
And that, I think, the people that are on this side, on that agree with me, welcome my message, because it's kind of fresh. It's not this,
And that's what I say
white
all
America,
the time on this show, is that we all are being brainwashed, right? So the people that are oppressing, not just Black people, but impoverished people in general, and it's the 1% that controls the government, the lobbyists, the corporations. So they control the media, and all of the things that all the things that we see is somehow controlled, right? So that's why I say white people are being brainwashed that they're superior. Black people are being brainwashed that they're inferior. And Latino and Asian people are being brainwashed that they don't even belong here. You know what I'm saying? So
no, I do. And you know, every system is created to sustain itself, right? So
Correct.
you know, the system has to protect itself.
Right.
And part of that protection is, you know, white privilege, right? So white America, and this is there's so much more of the conversation that just doesn't happen that needs to happen, and that's what I'm trying to force across the board is conversations to happen that are not happening. But you know, there's so much that white America doesn't understand racism. White America doesn't even understand what racism is.
Wait a minute. Okay, you said white America doesn't understand racism.
Right?
Can you dig down on that a little bit?
Sure.
What do you mean by that?
Yeah, because I don't know. I'm not sure if I agree. But let me hear your pretext first, because
right. So white America. So we don't have a relationship with our race. I'm not forced to be reminded that I'm white. I can ignore that I'm white. I can go my whole life. That's why you ever heard white people say, "Don't talk about race, and racism will go away." Yeah, in white America it will, because there is no race as long as you don't talk about it.
It's almost like ignorance is bliss.
Okay. Right. So in white America, racism is a light switch. That's what racism is in white America. You're either racist, light switch on, or you're not racist, light switch off.
Right.
And so this is how it works. Black friend, not racist. Right? My daughter.
If you have a black friend, like
not
racist.
Not racist. Because
also, is that why you hear some of my best friends are black? I mean,
yes, that's why you hear stupid shit like I talk to black people. See, here's how white America defines racism: riding on horseback, hood on, holding a burning cross.
Okay, I got it.
So if I'm not riding down the road as an active Klan member, and I talk to my black coworker, if I talk to a black person, see, white America want to define racism as somebody who hates everybody of another race. Right. That's how they define it.
Institutional.
Not considered any other facet whatsoever, right?
Right.
The truth is racism is a spectrum.
Absolutely.
Okay? And there's a broad spectrum of racism. Right. And white America doesn't understand that spectrum even exists. It's either racist, not racist. My daughter dates a black guy, not racist.
Forget my house, right?
They don't get the nuances of
right.
Like what a
nuance.
Black person has to go through basically on a daily basis. You know,
but as you said, because they don't have to. You know,
they don't have those experiences.
Right? Exactly. If the system is bent to benefit you, then you don't have any mechanism to be defensive.
Correct. Cognitive dissonance is built into. Let me explain something to you. This is very important. So what I like to talk about a lot is, and this is what I'm writing a book on, how racism is taught. This is that racism in white America is the most misunderstood topic, because non-white people really don't understand why white people don't get it, and white people don't get it.
You're right.
So,
we do.
Right. And so it's because nobody, we didn't eat Sunday dinner, and Dad said, "Come on, sit around. Let's talk about how to be racist." That's not how you're taught racism. Okay, that's not how racism is taught. Let me give you an example. My dad told me this, son, they're lazy. Now, you know who they are, right? He's talking about black folk. He says, son, they're lazy. Most of them, they don't go to work. They deal drugs, and they live on the system. They have babies and get welfare, and dads don't stay in the home. They just want welfare.
And these were words that you were told.
Yeah, 100%. And so, and all these other white folk that pretend like they wasn't were told the same shit. But anyway,
right.
But here's what's funny. Here's what's funny about it. So my dad's telling me that black people are drug dealers and on food stamps. Literally within 10 minutes of finishing this conversation, I'm like 13. Within 10 minutes of finishing the conversation, knock at the door. I go answer the door. It's a guy. My dad says, let him in. Guy comes in. He hands my dad some money. My dad weighs out 7 grams of marijuana. Puts it in the baggie. Well, this is not even fucking made up, bro.
Right.
Wow.
And then, he gives the marijuana.
Hey, your dad around? I might have to go see him.
He's dead.
No. Not
But
before sundown. You gotta get
But
out before
then-
sundown, man.
but check this out. So after they make this exchange, me and my dad jump in the car. We gotta go pick up some food. Go to a small grocery trip, just a quick one. We get to the checkout. Blue coupon, yellow coupon, green coupon.
Yeah, I remember
So
those
wait a
little
minute.
book.
Yeah, you remember those? Wait a minute.
Little book.
You just sold drugs and we're using welfare, but what? And the
Right.
difference was this: my dad would look me. My dad would make a drug deal right in front of us. He didn't hide it, and he would say, "Now you know why I do that, son? No, I was the oldest. That's why he'd always talk to me. I know. Well, look, I work hard. I bust my ass. I want to provide for you children, and I simply don't make enough money, and I want you to have the best life possible. So
Wow.
this is my way of making extra money.
Right.
And then food stamps. Oh, I pay my taxes. I work hard and pay taxes. I've earned these. You see, it's this cognitive dissonance that you're a drug dealing guy on welfare telling me that black people are drug dealers on welfare. You know the difference. You know what the difference is? White people were told 200 years ago, and they still believe it today. You might be poor, but at least you ain't black.
Right. You're white. That's right. Chris Rock said that. Chris Rock said, you know what? Chris Rock said that you asked the poorest white person if they'd trade places with him, a rich black person, and they'd say no. Yep. And that's what Jolly just said, that they were told 200 years and they still believe it, that you might be how did you word it?
You might be poor, but at least you ain't black.
At least you ain't black. Right. Now, Jolly, let me ask you this then. As it relates to critical race theory, then, how is that conversation going? I mean, how are people receptive to it? Are you seeing a change? I mean, you know what I mean? Why is there so much pushback on teaching what's history and
they don't really know what critical race theory is?
Exactly.
I mean, but why not be open to, like you said though, I mean, you were able to get to a certain point. Why are there so many people, especially in this day and age, that are just pushing back against this so hard?
Because it goes deeper. That's a symptom, right? The discussion of critical race theory is a symptom of the overall disease. The overall disease is misinformation and conspiracy.
Correct.
that plagues white America. Listen, when I was growing up, there was a Confederate flag in my front yard that said "South will rise again."
Right. Yep.
And I didn't know what the hell that meant. To be honest with you, I had not a clue. It didn't make any sense to me. I was a 10-year-old child.
Right.
I asked my dad one day, "Dad, what does that even mean?" He says to me this. He says, "Son, one day they're going to make it illegal to be white in this country. They're going to make it to be illegal to be Christian in this country. And we're going to have to stand up and fight for our rights. We're going to have to fight." That was in the 80s. This was before Trump and Q89.
Wow.
This is built into the fabric of America,
society,
of white America.
Like insurrection.
Right. And so
sounds like insurrection.
That's what led to it.
Right. Absolutely.
There was a lot of people. True story. I'm going to tell you two things. On December 12th, I put a video on TikTok, which now you can't go look at because my stupid TikTok got banned. But I put a video up on December 12th. I said, "Hey, man, these guys are getting worse and worse and worse. And I'm here to tell you it won't be long before they storm the Capitol building." That's what I said. December. And then on January 6th, I was supposed to be with Walter Masterson. Him and I used to go mess with the Trumpers all the time. I was supposed to be with Walter Masterson at the Capitol. And a few days prior, my company sent me out of town down North Carolina to do some work, and I was pissed I couldn't go. On the night of January 5th, and I'll show you the text, I sent Walter the following text the night before. I said, "Walter, listen to me. I know these people. I was raised around them." I said, "It's gotten bad, and something big's going to happen tomorrow. You're going to witness history. If something goes down, get out of there." Wow. So I told him.
That's right.
And he texted me. He said, "Damn it, you were right." I know I'm right. I look, I'm the Nostradamus of racist white people. I've been calling this stuff forever.
Right. That's amazing.
Hey, Stace, let's Jolly JGG, I'm gonna call you. Why don't we get into these topics if you're interested, and see where the conversation goes.
Okay, all right.
You good with that?
Absolutely, let's go.
Okay, what we're gonna do
on you guys' time, whatever y'all want to do.
Nice. We appreciate it. What we're gonna do is we're gonna throw out these next three topics, and you can choose the direction that you want to go. We have three. Okay. Domestic terrorism and the government. Why whitewash history? Disciplining step parents. Was I get the feeling you won't want to go in that direction. So domestic terrorism and the government. Why whitewash history?
So first on the disciplining step parents, I saw you guys had that on there. I was like, that's interesting. They say that. Do they know that I was divorced twice? Like, I don't know. So
Let's go there then.
I'm on my third marriage, right? That's a topic that's like prominent in my life. Like I've had this conversation so much.
Well, let's do it. Let's get to it.
It's just funny. It's funny that it was the topic. No, and I'll have that conversation because it's interesting to me. Because first of all, my own idea of disciplining children has changed over the years, right? Mm-hmm. And when you're in a relationship, in a marriage, and you have children, you have to kind of agree on how you're going to discipline children.
Absolutely.
Well, then when you divorce and then you add another person to the equation, man, that becomes that quickly becomes a mess.
Can be.
And right. In fact, my second marriage, the reason that we divorced and that didn't work out, it was a very short marriage, like 3 years. The reason was she treated my son like shit. My son was from my first marriage.
Wow.
And he was young at the time. And now, to her credit, some years later, she came back and said, hey, you know what? I was wrong for that. I've grown. Okay, good. That's cool. But yeah, she was just treating my son like shit. And just, I didn't agree with how she disciplined him. And so I said, you know what? We're out.
So you're not opposed to the step parent disciplining the kid.
I'm not opposed to it, but see, those left and right limits are going to be established between us prior to that happening.
True.
Let me give you an example. Yeah, let me give you an example. I don't spank my children. Now, I used to believe in spanking. I can't say I used to spank them because by the time I decided I don't believe in spanking anymore, I had only had one child by that point anyway. So, I used to believe spanking was an okay thing. I no longer believe that, and I have this debate a lot. But even if I did believe in spanking my children, I'm not letting a stepchild spank my child. I'm not letting that happen, right? And let me tell you why. And I have this conversation with my current wife and other parents that we've had this conversation with. It's not that the child may have done something that requires discipline,
correct,
but I don't know where your anger's coming from, right? I don't know. Are you showing my child as much love as you are discipline? Is that all you do is discipline them, but no love to counterbalance that? That's a problem, right?
Now, but then do you base that on, or you respond to that based on what you see? What if it's a responsible person and you do see that there's love there, and let's say your son did something that required capital punishment? I mean, again,
capital punishment.
Well, capital punishment meaning spanking.
Corporal punishment. Yeah.
Corporal.
About to line the dude up with a cigarette and a blindfold. Like, God damn, Steve.
Right.
I don't commit capital punishment on my kids though. So.
Right.
But the question is though, to both of you, if you're in a relationship where you do trust the person and there's love there, and that person treated their kids the same way, would you be opposed to it though?
Well, Stace, I was in my second relationship, and I had my 3 boys.
They might deserve to get mouth.
Yeah, that's right. You know what I'm saying? So right. I didn't have a problem with Venus, like her and Marcellus. Actually, when he was a baby, they went through it all the time.
Are you serious?
Yeah, because he was rough on her, man. He was rough. Yeah, he'd be like, "Shut up."
Whoa.
And then she'd be like, "You can't say that." And like, she might grab him and tell him to sit down. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But then if I seen him do that,
right,
I'd be like, "Yo, you can't."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You can't be doing that.
Nope.
You know what I'm saying?
Not acceptable.
Next time you do it, I'm gonna pop you in the mouth. You know what I mean?
Right.
Something like that. But yeah, I didn't have any problem with her. It depends, because I knew she wasn't going to do but so much anyway.
Right.
You know what I mean? Right. She wasn't going to go overboard. You know what I'm saying?
And you know what?
My whole thing is, okay, so to your question, do I trust them? If over a period of time, I through my own observation, have determined that you're coming from a solid place.
Right.
Anybody can check the box and say, is that worth punishment? Yes, no. Okay, cool. But I want to know where you're coming from. Even I don't care I don't mean just spanking. First of all, I'll make it clear. I no longer believe in spanking my children,
Mhm.
and my wife now is not going to spank our children together, nor is she going to spank my children that are her
Mhm.
stepchildren. It's not going to happen. Not in my house. And
Mhm.
so, my whole thing is, that's an earned respect. Like, you've got to earn my trust to discipline my stepchildren.
Mhm.
Especially if we're putting hands on children. Here's my whole thing with
And
spanking.
also they have to earn the respect of your children as well.
Absolutely.
100,000%. Exactly.
Right.
Like, I don't believe, I told her this, I don't believe, and we're just going to say, well, I'm the parent, and that's not how the real world works, man.
No.
I'm not trying to, I say this all the time, I'm not trying to raise good kids. People say, what? Nope, I'm trying to raise good adults.
Oh,
they're,
nice.
They're not kids for very long.
Correct.
They're kids for this long, but they're adults for this long.
Right. For the rest of their life. Right.
If I teach them their whole life how to be a good kid, they're fucked when they're an adult.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
That's why I stopped that, and that's why I stopped spanking them. To be honest with you, not any of this new age. Let's light some incense and hang out in the garden. No, none of that. It is in the real world. When you mess up, nobody hits you. That's stupid. It doesn't happen. Mm-hmm. So let me explore now my own critical thinking and find better ways to approach this situation. If this way is not working, that way is not working, fine. Now let my child approach how to address these different things. This is putting them through real world experiences so they can be raised to be a good adult. And guess what you find out? What I have already found out since I stopped spanking them. They're gonna act out a little bit. Cool. I would rather you do that now when we can learn from it from a place of love.
But see, I'm a little different in that aspect because, like, anyway, my children are grown now, and all of them are, functioning adults. Good, good society.
Law-abiding citizens, right?
Law-abiding citizens,
right?
But when they was kids, I would have to grab them by the neck meat sometimes, you know what I mean, or grab them by their collar and be like, "Look."
Yeah. See now,
you know now, and the way that I've doing this,
the way that I've always done it, and I truly believe that if you lay the groundwork early, that the corporal punishment can wane over time. This is what I mean by that. When they're young, when they fear a little pop on the legs, and you threaten them with that. Now, of course, at some point, you're gonna have to show that you're serious and that you are to be taken seriously. So you pop them on the leg, they cry as a kid. Then when they get a little older, they learn that all you have to do is show them the hand. Like we all laugh about when you're in a grocery store and you do something and your mom looks at you with those eyes and you straighten right up because you know what that means. So again, my philosophy is you lay the groundwork early, and as the kid gets older, the respect is there. So you're trying less.
Sometimes in them teenage years, especially with boys.
Oh yeah.
Well, girls too. You know what I mean?
Right.
That little popping on the leg, that's your phase.
Yeah.
And they like, they try to test the waters a little bit. You know what I mean? That's why I had to stay in shape
let me hit you with a different perspective.
Coming up.
Let me hit you with a different perspective real quick. 98% of people are going to grow up to be good functioning adults.
Correct.
Anyway, right. Spanking, no spanking. I mean, there's no correlation actually. So in your mind, hey, I spanked them, they grew up. The ends has justified the means. But what I'm saying to you is, even had you not done that,
anyway.
right? Most likely they would have been
cool, right?
Like you have to work to ruin a child. Now you don't have to work that hard. You don't have to. And I mean, our prison systems, as full as they are, it's only 2% of America. 98% of people are not locked up.
Right.
98% of people are functioning people, and even those who are locked up are not bad people. I hate that. I hate that premise.
True.
I'm just saying, my whole thing is this: if I teach my child to stay in line out of fear, it limits them greatly.
True.
If I go to work and I'm scared of my boss, I'm not going to be as productive as I could be if I liked my boss and my job.
Absolutely.
And I have discovered, and I've read some articles on it, and not articles, books. I don't know why I said articles. I've read some books on it, and written by child psychologists, and this, that, and the third, and there is actual scientific data that shows the negative emotional effects of corporal punishment. And so my whole thing is this: I get why a lot of people do it. it's a tradition that's been passed on, much like racism.
I think black people do it out of fear.
What do you mean, like that they feel like they really have to pull the kid in line because once they get out there,
they're scared of them,
the consequence of it
being in the system, getting out here, getting in trouble, getting out here and not coming home. You know what I mean? So a lot of that, aggressive parenting comes
as
from,
they say, is out of love.
It's out of love, but it's also out of fear.
You
know what I mean? Especially in the black community, because if you have a child and you want that child to grow up, like to go to school and get good grades and not be a victim of the streets, you kind of have to.
There has to be a level of that.
Yeah, you got. It's a fine line you have to walk.
Fine line between fear and respect, because and as Terry said though. And this kind of goes to something you said also, Jolly, that it is a fine line because sometimes that kid will try you, especially in the teenage years, and sometimes, words don't mean anything. So at times, and I don't mean you, there's a difference between spanking the kid and beating them up.
Obviously.
I don't believe in beating them up, But
I get that. Right.
Sometimes you have to grip them up, and that's what gets their attention. Listen, if you don't respect me as the authority now, when you get out there, you're just gonna go out there and get shot.
Exactly.
Or you're gonna wind up behind bars.
That's kind of how I think. I think that's how the black community.
Which I
thinks
respect completely. I mean, I get that. I understand why people spank their children, period, in any community, because that is literally what's been passed down. We just have to, in my opinion, evolve past that. That's my opinion. We can accomplish all the same goals without doing that. Now, that's even hard for me. Look, I'm a regular person. So just some background. I mean, since we're talking about the subject, I was beat as a child.
By your stepmom, or this was
my dad. My mom didn't. My stepmom didn't touch me. My dad did. But it was really bad. Like twice. Before I even turned 10, 2 different occasions, the Department of Social Services removed me from the home. The second time I was removed from the home, I was kept away for, I think it was a year. Now, like, I'm looking back on this, saying this. So obviously, as a child, I was, I wasn't tracking the days, but it's about a year, and I stayed with my grandmother during that period. In fact, my grandmother got in trouble during that period for letting my dad see me when I was supposed to, and he had to go take classes with DSS while not getting me back. But I will tell you this: now, had that same thing that happened then happened now, my dad never would have got me back. So there's like photographs of me with bruises from like the top of my neck down to my ankles and my whole back and leg covered. Oh yeah, real bad. But that's not why I don't even say don't spank my children. Like, that's why I would never beat my children. I know the mindset of a beat child, and I never want my children to ever feel that way.
And again, I think there's a difference between beat up and spank.
Facts. And that's what I say. When you say spank, I don't think you mean you're beating your children.
No.
Right. It's a big difference.
And huge. And I like to think that, thank God I'm a talker, because what I do is before I get put hands on kid, I let them know, if you do this again, I'm gonna get you. So then when you do it again, I said, I told you, right? And you know me. So it's really it's your choice. Either you can not do it and spare the rod, or you can do it, and if I see you, I gotta get you.
Right. And so I'm gonna put an interesting perspective on your question. Question was step parents disciplining children. Just 3 days ago, me and my sister were talking.
The one that's on the chat now, Natasha.
Tasha's in here. I can't see that. Let me turn the comments on. Hang on.
Yeah, Natasha Robinson. Is that your sister?
Tasha is one of my sisters.
Hey, Tasha.
I have five sisters. I didn't know Tasha's in here.
Oh.
Actually, I just turned the comments on. I see Sierra's in here too. Sierra is actually what I'm talking about. That's my sister as well. She's in the comment section. But one thing I also recently decided, and this is kind of funny. I recently decided, my oldest is 11, and I was like, that's my sister there. And I was like, I'm gonna let you cuss. You want to cuss? Cuss. I don't care. Like, I just gave up. Not gave up. Not gave up. I shouldn't say gave up. But literally, listen. I don't just do these things. I think about them a long time, you know.
Right.
And I told my son, I said, son, if you want to cuss, cuss. I don't care. Like,
How old is he?
11.
Wow.
Because
See,
here's the
like
thing.
that.
Because why? Like if we really wanted to get down to brass tacks of why not, there's no good reason why not. It literally doesn't make sense. If we just really were having the conversation, if we're just being honest. And this is what you got to understand is a lot of these things are also how I broke away from bigotry.
Oh,
Okay?
yeah. Going
just because this is the tradition means nothing to me.
Right. True.
Just because racists are good people too. You want to have that conversation?
Right.
They are. But they are. Racists are good people. My dad
I don't doubt that they're good people, but I mean,
exactly. Right.
I think, like I said,
we
I
just
think
disagree with
based in ignorance.
We just disagree with a lot of what they think and
so do I.
And thought and everything else.
Right, but what I mean, I say that sentence for a shock factor. I say that to shock
and
people, right?
It works, right?
Because the truth is, my dad. He put bandages on my knee when I was cut. He gave me, he bought me presents on Christmas. He told me he loved me at least 3 times. There was thing like he was a good person as long as you weren't black. Right. And so and you know why? That is the exact reason. But that's the exact reason that white people won't call mommy and daddy out. That's why they won't call mommy and daddy out.
Now, that brings it, but Jolly, that brings forth a really interesting thought. Okay, let's extrapolate on that. Can you say that if someone used the same analogy, and I'm not talking about your family, let's put that out there. I'm just saying in general. If someone says a member of, because we kind of touched on this one time before, Terry, a member of the KKK, those are good people. They just want to string up all the black people they could get their hands on. Can those two?
I wouldn't go that far, Stacey.
No,
KKK.
But that's my point, though. I mean, can those two things? Can we say that Hitler? Remember, we were talking about the Hitler with the Autobahn. Can we say that?
Nope.
No, but but that's my point, though, Nike. And that's kind of what Jolly said. It's tough to
let me explain why I say that. No, I got your question, and it makes sense. Let me explain why I say that. First of all, this is where the nuance comes in. So first of all, how somebody is viewed definitely depends on the eyes of the viewer, right? So, I'm sure that I mean, maybe Hitler's children or Hitler's wife would have told you he was a good person. I don't know.
He was a good person, right?
But was he? No. But this goes back to the spectrum. There comes a point on that spectrum where your good person pass is gone. But the reason I bring up that racists are good people is because this is why. And I use that sentence to start conversation because it's important. You ever hear white people, especially these days, there's more and more white people that are trying to join the anti-racism fight, and that's a good thing.
Yes.
But they always say this, man, I was raised around a bunch of racists. Okay, cool. Why wasn't you raised by them, though? See, that's important to me. As the white guy who's trying to just get other white people to pay attention, around and by is very important.
Oh, true. Right.
You was raised around
racism to the home.
So your family was like the beacon of fucking hope in the neighborhood. Like everybody else was racist.
Right.
But y'all was, singing Kumbaya. And no, you wasn't. No, your mom and daddy went to the PTA meetings. Your mom and daddy was friends with the neighbors. Your mom and daddy hung out with the neighbors at cookouts and barbecues. And you was raised by racists too. But let me tell you why people don't see that they were raised by racists. Because they see the good in mommy and daddy. They see their heart. They see that they're good, loving people. And my daddy would never hurt nobody. My mommy would never hurt nobody. And so because white people don't understand racism, because racism is riding down the street on a horse with a hood on and a burning cross, mommy and daddy's not racist because I know them. The neighbors and everybody.
Understand the subtleties of it.
Right.
The subtleties, the nuance, the implicit biases, the stereotypes.
Right.
Here's the fact of the matter is this: if it walks, talks, and shits like a duck, it's a duck, right? So the problem with white America is they don't actually understand that duck of racism, how it walks, talks, and shits. They don't understand it. They've got it wrong. How do they get it wrong? The other topic you brought up, whitewashed American history.
Whitewashing, right.
That's the point of whitewashing.
Yeah, we do.
That's the point of it. That's the point of whitewashing.
Okay, we can ease into it. What do you mean by that? You said that's the point of it. Elaborate, please.
Because, in whitewashed American history, who are the heroes?
That's right. It's written by the victor. The winners write the story. The victors write the story. Right.
George Washington had wooden teeth. What a stupid idea, right? But nobody questions it.
Right.
George Washington also had 300 slaves, 300, and was considered an absolutely brutal slave master. And the teeth weren't wooden; they were teeth that was ripped out of the mouths of slaves. Right.
That's right.
And but what do we learn? That he chopped down a cherry tree. So like, it's because it's called watering down, right? Watering down history. Because why? Well, yeah, he did all that, but he also founded our country. He also led our war. Cool. But I want you to understand the nuance there.
Right.
The reason that white America, the reason white America was
his bad.
Right.
That's right. That's right. Because why? Racists are good people. That's why I forced that conversation. Yes, he did good things. That's why I'm trying to get white America to understand. You can simultaneously do good things and be racist. You can.
Well,
Abraham Lincoln, the great emancipator. It's a joke. Abraham Lincoln. He didn't even. He said that
he did that to win the war. Right.
Right.
Yeah. Well, Emancipation Proclamation was a joke anyway. But he said that. He didn't believe in slavery, but that black people and white people should never be equal. They can't be equal. Black people can't live in the same society as white people. We shouldn't enslave them. That was his words, literally, almost verbatim.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
But see, that's not taught in the history books. That's not taught in, any actual history is not taught.
Right.
Like, how can you teach kids that America was discovered when there was already people living here?
Right.
There was already people here. That's like somebody coming into my house and be like, "Hey, look what I found."
Right. That's right.
You know what I mean?
You're right. But you know what, Jolly, with the conversation that you had with the doctors, I think one of the things that you said that I found interesting when you said that, it made me think that the best way out of it is to ask questions, challenge. When you hear those statements, you challenge it, because you can't make someone change their thought process, but I can ask you a question and hopefully guide you to the right answer on your own. Because like you said, Ted, I'm not going to make you change the way you think. But if I can ask you the question that you just asked, what is the definition of discover? Can you discover something that that already is in existence?
Right.
You can start to lead people where you need them to be.
Let me show you this real quick. And this is I think you'll like this. The point of whitewashing is what? It's to make it comfortable. Comfortable is key. Okay? Comfortable is key. And what I've told everybody, and what I constantly drive home on all my platforms, is until you make white people have uncomfortable conversations, there's no progress. There's no progress. And so comfortable is what you're going to find out is this. Here's what you're going to find out when you do the cause and effect. Whitewashing of history and CRT are very closely related, because the whitewashing of history is taking all the bad and the negative and watering it down, and most of the bad and negative is racially related. So we take all that out. So CRT analyzes it. So they're kind of antithetical to each other. But when you go to the whitewashing history, makes it comfortable. Once you make it comfortable, that makes people proud of their history and proud of their country, which creates what? Nationalism. You see, nationalism in America is racism. Nationalism in America,
just like they're trying to take the mantle of patriotism.
See, but you know what?
Claim that.
But you know what? Wait a minute. But let me push back a little bit on that. When you say nationalism is racism, okay, and I'm thinking out loud now. One of the statements that I think that black folk, have a better understanding of what this country has the potential to be, because we go by what is written in that Constitution. So when you talk about white folk don't understand what racism is, we're looking at you saying, well, wait a minute, what do you mean you're trying to strip away the right to vote? The Constitution says one man, one vote, or whatever it is. So I would say that I'll go as far as to say that folk are patriotic. I'm a patriotic person because I think this country has the potential to be great. Because they're as they call it, a great melting pot. There aren't many countries that are so diverse and have so many different flavors as this country. So I'm a true patriot because I think this country can be great. So I don't know if I think that patriotism is racist. Does that make sense?
Nationalism, he said.
But
Nationalism.
I specifically, I mean, I get what you're saying, and I thought I kind of thought that's what you would say. So that's why I opened that conversation up, right? So nationalism is patriotism, or is racism. This is why. Nationalism is loving your country.
Mm-hmm.
Nationalism is blindly loving your country. That's what nationalism is. Patriotism is loving your
keyword. Okay.
blindly.
So you're saying the key word is blindly.
Listen, watch. I pledge allegiance to a flag. No, I don't. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard of. I don't pledge allegiance to any. I was in the military for 13 years. I've been to Iraq. I've been to Afghanistan. I've been in combat. Yada, yada, yada. Woohoo. I got a t-shirt from it. But at no point, and I promise you this, was myself or any of the people to my left and right fighting for a flag. None of us gave a shit. Go to any military base around 1,700 hours.
But isn't the flag just the idea, though? Is the flag is just what it represents, which is the idea, right?
The devil comes in lamb's clothing. Listen. Once you let the idea, listen, my children will not pledge allegiance to a flag. Mm. The flag is the idea that the government decides. The right. Country. That's why I tell people, stop telling people to love America and demand that America love its people. That is patriotism.
Now we're talking.
Repeat that. I'm sorry. Repeat that. Yeah. Repeat that. I missed the job.
I said, stop telling people to love America and demand that America love its people. Okay?
True.
And that's what I mean. Nationalism, listen, right. Whitewashing history, here is why. The system, we said this earlier, the system is designed to keep itself running. So I need a good, healthy flow of poor people to fight a rich man's war. I need that first of all. Okay, so how do we do that? Well, we make you love your country, and then we are the country. Hoo-hoo, we're great. So the flag's great. Don't you want to defend your flag, son? Yes, I do. I want to be a patriot. Go send me off to die. Listen, that has to happen for the idea to continue. Right? This country has to flex our military muscle. That also, listen, nationalism is the reason that half these dummies are allowing our government to spend 50% of our budget on a robust defense budget. Meanwhile, our schools are underfunded. We got standardized testing, but we don't have standardized resources. We got standardized testing, but we don't have standardized opportunities. But we got F-22s that have never seen a dog fight in their life and never will. The last time planes fought in the sky was World War II, but we still make a new $200 million plane every year. We make about 10 at a time. So nationalism is why we do that.
Some of that money goes to the 1%. That's what
I'm saying. But I still think we need it, though.
When I talk about brainwashing and propaganda, I'm talking about all of that you just said as well.
Right. That's right. That's what we do. Listen. They didn't lynch black people on the street because they saw them as people. They had to first dehumanize the black population so that they didn't see it. Listen. So if I can convince you that American is this, and this, then anything that's un-American is your enemy, even if that's a person, even if that's an idea. That is what Donald Trump did. That's what the Conservative Party has done. They have put the Conservative Party, everywhere you go, American flag, they wear it on their clothes.
The coup is coming. It's not over yet.
No. Yeah, exactly. No, they're pissed off, right? I keep my ear to the ground when it comes to that crowd. And so when we used to go troll the Trumpers, when me and Walter used to go mess with the Trump crowd, and he still does, when we would go to D.C., they'd be having these big rallies. I can see them from 300 miles away. They're all wearing red, white, and blue shirts, and they say, "Yeah, see me? You're making fun of my clothes. I'm a patriot." No, you're a brainwashed nationalist. That's what you are. You're kissing the
There's a difference.
But listen to me. Who has that brainwashed nationalistic idea more than any other population? White America.
Absolutely.
More white people are brainwashed by that. And so that's what I'm telling you. A way to approach racism and without scaring white people off, because white people get scared of the word racism, right? So I talked to him about nationalism. Nationalism is nothing more than thinly veiled racism.
But see, black people, and you can Stacey, you're my witness. I say this all the time. Black people are brainwashed in the opposite direction. So
what do you mean? Right?
Brainwash. I mean, black people are brainwashed to think they're inferior. So they think that the boogeyman is there. There's some white man stopping them from doing whatever they need to accomplish. I know that there's racism. I know that there's systemic racism and institutionalized racism.
Absolutely.
All that. But there's no white person that has dominion over another person, or no black person that has dominion over a white person. So that's why I think that once people can free their own minds and think for themselves,
but the system
then
has
we
to
can
first
start
break
having a
first.
conversation.
And
about,
I think I agree with Jolly. It's the system. It's not, and like we talked about before we got on, though. It's not. And you talked about this on the podcast with the doctors. It's not the individual. It's more systematic. That's the problem. Right. It's systematic. So it's institutional.
It was created that way, and it hasn't been. Here's the thing: we systematically marginalized the black community, systematically,
correct,
and systemically. Both of those apply.
Correct.
We did it. We did it very purposefully and in a very specific order. But guess what? We didn't do. We didn't systematically undo that. We systematically marginalized the community, but we never systematically marginalized the community.
Right. But it's incumbent on us to unmarginalize ourselves. And the only way
that's where that's where I shouldn't say disagree with you. I hear what you're saying, and I've talked to a billion people who say that same thing, and I respect it. And I would never say, because I'm not black, so I'll never be black. So I can't say to you, a black man, saying that this is what's best for the black community. I got you. But what pisses me off is that's what white America expects. Hey, now, unmarginalize yourself. We're not racist anymore. 1964 happened. Dummy, it's equality now. Now you're just lazy. That is where white America is at. And we must demand accountability of white America.
Agreed. Now, I understand what Terry is saying, and it's a fine line.
For somebody else to set you free.
I get exactly.
It's a fine line, but the other side where I do agree with Jolly, as we talked about before, though, is that institution makes it very, very, very difficult. And you
I didn't say it wasn't hard. It's hard.
Right.
It's right.
So you have to acknowledge that
simultaneously, right? So
correct.
So Black America has to figure out how to live inside white America. You got to. One of my best friends, and he talks about that all the time. He talks about the reason that his mom and dad named him Brandon is it's a white name, and he knows not to act this way. He understands. He figured out very, very early how to operate in white America, and me and him have this conversation a lot, and I get that. But here's what I'm going to say. Here's my point though. My phone. All right, so I got an iPhone. All right. Well, my phone doesn't do everything. So what my phone doesn't do, what do? I got to download an app. Now, I can't download Android apps on my iPhone. I got to download iPhone apps on my iPhone because even though they do something different than what my phone does, they must operate within the parameters of my phone's operating system. And if my phone was to break and I fix my phone's going to return to its natural operating system, maybe with those apps, maybe with not. That is America. The operating system of America is white supremacy. Every time we make a new law, that's just an app we're downloading, but it must operate within the parameters of white supremacy. Why did we have a Voting Rights Act in 1965 when we had one in 1865? Wait a minute. Why did we have a Civil Rights Act in 1964 when we had one in 1865? Because no matter what we do, the system will always revert back to itself because it's not broke. The system isn't broken. It's working exactly the way. And so as long as we stay inside this system, we're going to keep getting these results. So we must.
Who's been saying that, Stace? Who's been saying that for the longest?
Yeah, that's a fact. That's 100% fact. That's why, Terry, I don't disagree with what you're saying. Learn how to operate because you're here now. This is your life. You got to get by. I respect all that fully. And you as a black man are going to have to work 3 times harder than me as a white man to get the same results. You're going to have to. And that now that's bullshit, right?
It is bullshit, but you got to be willing to do that
right.
to get what you got to get. Like you can't let, what's
the push the message?
You know what I mean?
Right, but
I think the problem becomes though the fact that and I'm going to put my patriot hat on. In this country, the laws are supposed to be colorblind and are supposed to protect everyone and represent everyone.
No,
look
at the 13th Amendment, Stace.
No. I'm not talking about. No, wait a minute now. I'm not talking about what they do. I'm talking about the way that it's supposed to be. Laws don't say this white person this and this black person this. No, laws are written for citizens, for the people that live in. Let me finish. So again, I think the breakdown is when those laws, like you said, there was a civil rights movement over in 1865. Why they have to have a voting right in 1965? Because it wasn't enforced, or people twisted it, and it reverted back. So then therefore you have to tighten it back up.
Because
so again,
always reverse back to it. Watch this. Watch this. I love what you're saying right now. I love it. This is the conversation we have to have. Let me answer that. Okay, watch this. So, in 1965 Civil Rights or 1964 Civil Rights Act happens. 1965 Voting Rights Act. What happened was black people started moving into Main Street, right? So black people started moving into Main Street. Main Street was white America. Downtown urban centers was white America. They built the town around Main Street. Well, when black people moved in, what did white people do?
Right. White flight.
It's called white flight, right? Yep. And that's how the suburbs were created. Now watch. Right. This is a very important conversation. So white flight happened. So now we got de facto segregation versus de jure segregation. It's no longer by law. It's just by matter of fact, right? The only white people who didn't move out was the poor white people that couldn't afford to. So now you got, poor white folk and black people in downtown, and then nothing but white folk in suburban white America, right? Mm-hmm. And so that means that the schools, which were centrally located schools, right, this way before bus and all that stuff, this school out here in suburban white America was predominantly white. Mm-hmm. The school in downtown was predominantly black. At that same time, it was circa 1969, 1970. They passed a law that said state taxes should no longer fund the school. Property taxes should fund the school. Because that way, if you got a house in the neighborhood going to school, then it's your kid at school, so it's your taxes rather than somebody who don't have kids paying for it. That was the concept. Right. The truth is, in the back rooms they were negotiating this, it was 100% to target Black America. It was meant to target Black America. Right.
But if you read the rest of the laws that they created,
exactly, just like Terry v. Ohio, 1961, just like I can make you a list. If you read the law at face value, well, that's not racist. No, it was purpose. Because 1964, we passed a law that said, hear ye.
You don't have to go any further
you can't
than
say
the 13th
Black
Amendment to see that.
No, I agree, because it said except when found guilty of a crime, and then in 1865, vagrancy laws were passed. 1866, vagrancy laws were passed.
But the fact still remains, though, the fact still remains. Now, and I understand what you're saying, Jolly. I understand that. But the fact still remains that let's say the person that lived in the suburb or what have you, when they made that change to the laws,
right?
With two things. When they made that change, the person that lived in the suburbs, they'll benefit from that, and they might be Black. So the only thing that I'm saying is that
still 22% of Black America lives in poverty, 9% of white America lives in poverty. As long as that law exists, it will always disproportionately affect Black people. Period. Can Black people benefit from that law?
Written, Stace. That's just the way they are, man.
It's better, in my opinion, it's better to scrap the whole law. Here's the thing. That's my whole point. We got standardized testing. Standardized testing is racist. You got standardized testing, but you don't have standardized resources. Albert Einstein said if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it'll always be considered stupid.
Well, but you still need to. But wait a minute, though. Okay, and I'm going back to something you said. Standardized testing, and I get it. I've heard the argument about the racist standardized testing, but at the same time, you still need. There still has to be a mechanism to test knowledge. There has to be a floor.
But why are we making that the watermark? Before, I refuse to have a conversation with anybody about the standardized mechanism for testing. But if we're not going to first have a conversation about the standardization of resources,
if everybody's not being taught the same,
I'll give you that.
That's got to be priority.
I agree with that.
How can you be tested on the same thing?
No.
I
understand the negative consequences of it. I understand the negative consequences of it. But what I'm saying is that I don't. The standardized testing itself, I understand the point of it. You have to have a way to say, is Johnny ready to go to the next level?
But
Now,
if
I'm
Johnny
not
wasn't
saying
taught
that,
to know
and
Johnny ain't ready to go, because
but
you can't have a standardized test, Stace, unless you have standardized teaching.
Recently.
Right, no, I got that. Night. I said I don't disagree with that.
So how can Johnny be ready if he wasn't taught what's in the standardized test?
And let me say this.
So wait a minute. So let me ask you this then. So it's not that we have a problem with the function of standardized testing. We disagree with what happens before we apply that test, because Johnny was
the disproportionality of it.
Right.
Here's the thing. When you look at racism, systemic racism across the board, when we look at medical racism, we look at environmental racism, we look at these are simply things you could argue in. If I was arguing in a vacuum, I could say, well, it makes sense why the power plant put the power plant over there. Economically, it was cheaper. I can make that argument, but it was right next to a black neighborhood every damn time. We can make arguments in a vacuum, but at the end of the day, if the implementation of this particular mechanism disproportionately affects a single community, that is a no-go in my book and must go away. Right. Equity must come first.
Correct. I agree with that. Right. I agree with that. There are no qualms with me on that. What you about to say, Knight?
Did we hit all the topics for tonight?
I'm not sure. Yo, Jolly, man. You firebrand. Hey,
Jolly be knowing his shit, man.
Yo, you a firebrand. Nah, it's the passion. It's the passion.
Yeah.
It's the passion that comes across. All right, let me see. I think we did.
I just getting worked up, and people think that I'm getting mad. I'm not mad. I'm very emotional about it. You know?
I think that.
This is how we talk.
I wanted to have you on the show, because I really connected with what some of the stuff that you were saying on the videos that I saw, and I was like, this brother right here, he gets it. You know what I mean? Like I feel like you get it. You know what I mean?
Because here's my whole thing. A lot of white people. This is like 90% of what I do is I try to talk to white people, because that's my job. My job is to address the white community, and a lot of white people. I'm glad that they're opening their eyes to anti-racism, and that's good. But here, what happens is white people come in and want to join the fight, and then colonize it. That's what they want to do, right? Like, I tell people all the time, when last year when George Floyd was murdered,
right,
I saw people that I'd never heard talk about race before put little memes on their Facebook. I'm anti-racist. I looked at my wife, because I'm the Nostradamus of racist white people. I looked at my wife and I said, babe, watch. Mark my words, and if I'm wrong, I'll pack my shit and leave. Mark my words. In 2 weeks, 90% of these people, BLM be out their bio. Don't worry about it. They won't have BLM bio no more. I was right. You know what they said? Well, I agree with Black Lives Matter, but rioting and looting. Here, listen to me. If you truly understand the human rights crisis, and that's what we need to start using that language. If you truly understand the human rights crisis, which is Black Lives Matter, if you truly understand the human rights crisis going on in this country, and the one thing keeping you from assisting other humans in this crisis is that Target was burnt down, then you were full of shit off.
Right, exactly.
You was full of shit from the
They didn't understand it. Right. Yeah. It was a lack of, but you know what though, Jolly, this goes back to the first thing that you said, basically when you first came on, that, white folk don't understand racism. So they don't, there's no comprehension. I don't understand. Or the first thing you'll hear is, why are you burning down your own neighborhood?
Or why you guys are always so upset.
Right.
You don't understand.
Right.
It takes a certain mindset just to go to the store.
These white people couldn't be black for a day. They couldn't wear a mask for a year. Goddamn, they couldn't be black for a day.
Right.
Listen, white people. The reason the mask and COVID is oppression to them is because that's the luxury of not knowing what the fuck oppression is.
Right. Exactly. Right. That's right. Right. You're making me uncomfortable. And so I think that was someone mentioned that privilege itself is my right to be comfortable. That's what privilege affords you.
Right.
You know,
Right.
not you know, the right to not feel uncomfortable.
And
You
as
know?
a black person, I can tell you, I feel uncomfortable all the time.
Yeah,
All
right.
the
And,
time.
and you know what else privilege does? This is a big thing that I tell a lot of people. You know, we are taught. Okay, we are taught. You know, work hard and you can make it. You can be whatever you want to be. Okay, that's what I'm taught. And in white America, that fucking works for the most part. Classism is another issue, right?
Classic, right? Yeah, that's right.
1%. Listen, not everybody. I tell everybody this all the time. Not everybody's going to be an entrepreneur. If everybody was an entrepreneur, we're screwed because who's going to work?
Right. You need workers. Right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
you got to have worker bees. Everybody's got to listen. This is if we really want to get to the master PhD level of this conversation and really get down and have nuanced conversation. I want to talk about not what gets everybody privilege and what makes everybody great. I want to talk about allowing a person to be mediocre if they want to. In this country, a black man's not allowed to be mediocre. If you're mediocre as a black man, and I say black man because I'm a man, black women as well. But if you're mediocre as a black person, guess what? See what I told you, son? Don't nudge you.
Lazy.
See, boy? Lazy.
Right.
Ain't got a word.
Right.
But if I'm lazy,
We
as a white
always
man,
have to go above and beyond,
Yeah,
especially
that's the saying.
like at my job, right?
Price is good.
Right. Equality truly happens when we're allowed to
I
all be
never
mediocre.
feel comfortable at my job, even though I've been there for years. I never feel comfortable because I always feel like I have to know more. I have to be better. I have to, you know, when I just have to be better at my job than a lot of other people that I see, and they'll come and ask me for help. You know what I'm saying? But the thing is, like, I should have. It shouldn't be that way. I should, like you said, I should be able to be mediocre.
Right.
But
we need mediocre people. You have to have
previous brainwashing won't let me be mediocre because I know I have to go above and beyond in order for me to just be average.
If a white guy goes to work every day, makes above minimum wage, make $10 an hour, I'm making numbers up, makes $10 an hour, he's dumb as shit, doesn't do anything with his life, drinks beer, they'll say he's a hard worker.
Right, yeah.
If a black man goes to work every day, doesn't do anything, makes $10 an hour, never tries to get promoted, he's fucking lazy. He's just that's all he'll ever be. Exactly. It's the same person, same scenario, different analysis.
Right.
That is true equality. That's true equity. It's not just everybody's ability to succeed, but allowing people, because everybody, listen, as it stands, and you hit the nail on the head, Terry, as it stands in Black America, you have to be this fucking go-getter 24/7 on your drive. That's not fair.
Right. True.
Not everybody's not going to be that. That's not how humans are built.
One of our listeners,
when you were talking about comfort, I mean, I'm literally like, just I'm. It's hard to be a black person and be comfortable. Like be comfortable all the time. Like if I'm around my people, if I'm around my family, I'm comfortable. If I'm home, I'm comfortable. But I'm talking about when I have to leave the safety of my own home, when I have to go out in the street and I see maybe a police officer riding behind me, he not even thinking about me, but I'm thinking about him.
We're looking at him.
You know what I'm saying? Like I'm thinking about him. I'm like,
we know where they are. That's right. You looking in your mirror.
Like, I got my insurance card in here. My mind is racing. You know what I'm saying? And he doesn't.
You know why that is? You know why that is? Because 44% of officer interactions. I'm sorry. Yeah, 44% of officer interactions are officer initiated, which means the officer decided to engage you, and most of that's traffic stops. And officer initiated interactions, as a black or brown person, you have a 3 to 4 times higher chance of threat of force.
That's right.
On officer initiated interactions. That's quantifiable truth.
That's the fact. Like, remember, that's why I said that they need to pull when they give you the regular excuse that we received the call. They need to start pulling those call logs and say, was that a fact or were you just lying?
Agreed.
One of the listeners just said, when my sons were little, I told them you were born with 2 stripes against you. You have to be 2 steps ahead of the game. And that's kind of what we're talking about. You have to be that much better. All right, quick question. All right, we're running. We normally run about an hour.
But there's good conversation, man.
I ramble a lot. That's my fault.
I'm hoping that
no. Hey,
we could bust it up, man, because I enjoy talking to you.
So the last thing that we didn't touch, and Nike, we can decide if we want to hit this next week or what, or we could roll it out to Jolly. Domestic terrorism and the government. What we were talking about is, are they covering up basically?
Well, let me go on that real quick, and then I'll let Jolly end it. Just imagine, and the only thing I'm gonna say on this,
and I know exactly where you're going.
Just imagine if those people were black or Latino.
We don't have.
It would have never happened.
No, we don't have to imagine. We don't have to imagine it.
We know.
Guess where I was. Guess where Russell was. And just before that shit happened, only about a few months, I was in D.C. in a giant march. They had Al Sharpton up front, and it was a big march. We were marching down Constitution Avenue in D.C., and I was in that march, screaming, "No justice, no plea, no peace. Fuck these racist ass police." That's what we was yelling. I'll just keep it real with you. And so we were marching, and you know what was on our left and right?
Riot cops.
Riot cops.
I knew it. Tanks, everything.
Everywhere. Right. And we were as peaceful as you could be.
Planes flying overhead.
Right. Yep.
Listen to me. Nothing happened.
Right.
There was nothing broke out.
Right.
No,
right.
Nobody was standing in front of us and saying, "This is a sham. Go get them."
Right.
So we don't have to imagine. We watched it. Black Lives Matter marched down Constitution Avenue, and they responded with force and violence from the mere presence.
Initiated.
For the mere presence.
Right.
Initiated. Right.
Donald Trump.
So can you imagine them walking to that building?
It would have been a bloodbath.
Would have made it.
It would have
been a bloodbath.
It would have been a bloodbath. Right.
It would have been a bloodbath.
It never would have made it.
It would have been.
They hung a noose up in front of the fucking Capitol building and said, "Where's Mike Pence?"
Right.
They broke into the rotunda. That's the first time in history that
it's been breached.
That's right.
Yeah, it's been breached. Like, come on,
so
man.
I guess you don't need to answer the question then when I ask when we pose the question, is the government covering for homegrown terrorism? Right. Yeah, I guess there's no need to ask you the question.
Give you an answer you didn't expect.
We already know the answer.
I'm gonna give you an answer you didn't expect. No, it's not covering for them.
Oh, it is them.
It was made for them.
That's right.
That was listen. Name. I'll wait while you name one time we've had an instance of non-white people commit domestic terrorist acts in America.
Domestic terrorists, yeah. You're right.
Yeah.
Right.
I'll wait. It's always white people. It's always right wingers. The FBI has labeled the number one threat domestically in America since 1970 has been radical right wing. That's quantifiable fact.
And unfortunately, Jolly,
it was made for them.
And unfortunately, if we can't, and I say we, I mean the country and its residents and citizens, if we can't acknowledge that, you can't address the problem. Then what Terry said is true. It's going to happen again because we're not prepared.
Because there was no consequences for that.
What has happened throughout history? Every time something like this happens, we compromise with white supremacy. Every time. After the Civil War, we compromised with them. Remember that? Right. And what do we get from that? What do we get from that? Jim Crow. That's what we got from the compromise with the Civil War. After Jim Crow was over, we compromised with white supremacy again. We've never held accountable white supremacy. Listen, because they own everything. The 1%. It's because we're in their system.
Right.
We have to. People always talk with me for hours about problems. I like your input, Jolly. I love what you're saying, Jolly. Then at the end they say, "So what's the solution?" And then they shit themselves when I tell them the answer. You got to burn the motherfucker down.
Well, now.
Whoa!
Now you cannot. I'm like your friends now. I keep it at voting. I say vote.
Yeah, I was like, damn, let's vote somebody out. I was like, nope.
You can't legislate morality. You cannot legislate morality. You can't make people not racist.
See, me and Terry said that they can be knocking on outdoors.
Right. So that's what I'm here for. Don't worry about it. Hey, don't say it, guys. I got you.
You got us. No.
I'm a digital revolutionary. I ain't coming down there to burn y'all shit down.
The system is not broken. The system is not broken. You can't fix something that's not broken. Let me tell you something. The Democratic Party is a fucking joke. The Republican Party is a fucking joke.
Yeah,
the left and right, the left and right wing are the same bird. If you allow that bird to fly, it's nothing but Bloods and Crips.
No, I do believe though. I do believe that change can happen by being active citizens. I think that change. Let me
people and poor black people fighting each other.
No, but Nike, but
that way, if we're fighting each other, we can't concentrate on them.
See, but Nike, but what I'm saying is that as and I'll just quote President Obama that we get the change that we fight for. The reason why things get to this point is because we don't fight for it. We don't show up at every election like we supposed to.
We fighting the wrong fight.
No. I'm just talking about. I think I'm responding to what Jolly said. I think that, or maybe look at it this way, Jolly. Maybe burning it down is an extreme version of saying everyone participate. How would things look? If 90% of the people came out and voted and participated in this democracy?
Okay, I'm gonna hit you with the answers. You ready?
Yes.
So first, for clarification's sake, when I say burn it down, I don't really mean physically either. I mean proverbially. That's what I really mean.
Right.
But I mean the system's got to go. But let me answer your question. You said that we don't fight, and I believe you're referring to people as a whole, or maybe you're referring to the black community. It doesn't matter.
No. People as a whole. Okay.
But even if you're referring to the black community, that's also true across white America, right?
Correct.
Listen. If 90% of America showed up and voted, this shit gets worse. That's the answer.
Oh. See,
wow,
that's the answer. So? There's more. What's the majority? There's 64% of America. 64% of America is white. But 55% of white Americans voted for Donald Trump.
That's another reason why they're trying to hold on to their power, is because the majority is slowly changing. By 2025, I think we'll be. By 2025, I think the numbers will be about even.
See, but that's like saying though, as you said early on though, Jolly, when we were talking about the kids, you said that 98% of the people are good people. So I believe that. I believe that those racists and those people out there causing that havoc are a very small, loud, and boisterous number compared to the whole. I think most people just want to raise their kid. They want to go to work. They want to go home. Leave me alone. I think that's most people. So I think that if 95% of the country came out and voted, I don't think it would be a terrible thing.
I think I would agree with you under this premise. Here's the premise I would agree with you under. If we got rid of the polarized two-party system, right? Because you can have good people, but good people, there's those good people.
Choose a side. Right.
Yeah, they believe Black Lives Matter is a terrorist organization. That's not some rare few. There's a lot of people
that believes that.
Yeah, right.
There's one side that believes that.
Right. And it doesn't matter how good the person is. If that's the side they're voting for, that's the side they're voting for, whether 100% shows up. Right? That's my whole point.
Well, but Jolly, but Jolly, even with that though, right now, as we just agreed to, that's one political system that some of them believe in that, and that's not even the majority. Right now, it's that the people that believe that are on that side, it's a small percentage of them. It's like 30 or so percent of people that believe that BLM is a terrorist organization and that things are fine the way that they are.
If the majority of white America didn't believe it, we wouldn't be having a conversation. It'd be fixed.
Ooh.
We're having this conversation because that's not true.
Let me think, Jolly. Let me think, man.
You don't think that the majority can say, hey, whoa, this is bullshit. Hey, the majority couldn't come together and say, hey, they're right. Black lives don't matter in this country.
Because we're all polarized because of the brainwashing that's going on. I'm telling you.
I think the problem is having
the 1%. They own the media. They own the newspapers. They own the publications.
That's the intersectionality.
They own the media. I mean, they own the television, the cable. So everything you're being fed is coming from that 1%.
Hey, Night. All right, listen. It's 9:30, man. We've been on an hour and a half. Yo, hey, Jolly. Yo,
Look,
man.
I'll ramble. That's my fault.
Yo, hey, Jolly, man.
Hey, Jolly,
At
man,
some
this was a
point,
good show, man.
yo,
I appreciate
at
it.
some point, yeah, I mean, actually, it wasn't even a show. It was a conversation, you know.
Yeah.
So at some point, man, we gotta figure out a way to get
Yeah, let's do it again.
We're gonna
Let's do it
have
again. Let
part
me know.
2. We don't know when, but we're gonna have
Right.
part 2,
We're
man.
gonna have to. Now,
yeah.
so Jolly, in closing, what do you want to put out there in closing, man? In your words, in closing.
So this is what I believe. You know, a couple weeks ago, I was in Charlotte. I was on a podcast there, and we had a panel. And on that panel was the father, Jacob Blake. You guys know Jacob Blake. He got shot in Kenosha, Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
So Jacob Blake Sr. was there, and him and I were talking, and then during the show and after. And you know, sometimes I feel like I'm the only one saying this, and he said it, and I felt really good to hear somebody else say it. But listen, we've tried. I mean, we as people, we as a society have tried so many things, and the definition of sanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different result. Okay, we can't wait this thing out. Revolution is the answer. Now, how that revolution works, how the revolution looks, I think we can determine that if we come together and we decide how that revolution works. But at the end of the day, at the absolute end of the day, the system isn't broken. The system is working exactly the way it was intended. So if we all come together and try to change how things operate in this system, it's not going to work. It's just going to be a temporary fix to a permanent problem. And so what we need to do is we need to do things. We need to be loud, and we need to make a change. On August 21st, I'm going to actually be at the Jacob Blake March, Kenosha, Wisconsin. I'm going to be doing be a guest speaker there. September 25th, I'm going to be in Minneapolis, guest speaker at the George Floyd Square there. August 28th, we're going to be in D.C. We're marching down Constitution Avenue for voting rights. Listen, you got to get out. You have to get. We as people, if you're listening to this, if you believe in this, if this is what, it's not easy. I don't have money, bro. I'm a pretty poor dude. I live pretty mediocre, but I find a way that I'll be damned if I'm passing this shit on to my children.
Wow.
And so my whole thing is either be about it or you're not, right? So like action is the answer. And I personally believe, like you said, it was my closing. My closing is this. I just don't believe that voting's it. That's we have to do that now. I get it now. Right now, that's a good answer. But revolution is the only answer. You said, Terry, in 2025, the majority change. Okay, cool. So majority changes. And so now the majority vote is when it's going against white America. How does that look? That looks like another civil war. No matter how you paint this, the outcome is revolution. And so either we wait for revolution to happen like we did on January 6th, and luckily that was averted, or we make revolutionary happen. So you want to be the person that's sitting around wondering what happened, or the person sitting around making shit happen? And for me, I just want to be out there making shit happen.
Nice. Jolly, man.
Hey, Jolly, what group are you with?
What you mean?
Like when you say you're going to make these speeches, and you were with like what, the Action Network, or what guys were you?
Well, just I do this one thing and I meet this one person. I'm not really with a group. I get invited to do different stuff. You know, after our podcast a couple weeks ago, Jacob Blake Sr. invited me to the Jacob Blake March in Kenosha. He's like, man, you're a powerful speaker. I want you to speak. I said, I'll do that. Okay. You know, and then the podcaster there invited me to the one in Minneapolis. And then I'd already been planning on going to DC. So I just meet people, you know, but by
the way, we having a joint in Philly on the 29th.
August.
Yeah, August 29th.
Glad you brought up Philly. So I'm waiting for, you know, the story of David Jones. David Jones was killed in Philly by a Philadelphia police officer. You know that story? You familiar with it?
No.
No, I ain't hear that one.
Okay, so David Jones, look it up. He was killed, I think, 4 years ago at this point. He was driving his dirt bike down the road to go sell the dirt bike to like somebody was going to buy it from him. Cop pulled him over and ended up shooting him in the back. He had his hands up, got shot in the back. It's ridiculous. Cop got fired. Cop still fired. Trial hasn't happened. They keep postponing the trial. I met with and talked to the parents of David Jones, which is Tommy Jones. Really, really just great guy. And I told them, I made a promise to them, and I'm going to keep that promise. When they finally decide to make this trial happen, we're going to all go to Philly and we're going to march and we're going to make sure the media is there, because what they're trying to do is postpone this shit so America forget about David Jones. So that this officer can walk, and we're not going to sleep about it.
Right. So, when are you going to be here then? Do you know yet?
Don't know yet. Waiting. You know, it's kind of whenever they decide to make the trial, we're going to burn Philly down. You know, not okay. I got
Please don't burn my
We're
house
not
down.
going to burn it. We're not going to burn anything with fire. We're going to burn
Right,
it with
I got you.
passion and
Right.
emotion.
There you go.
Hey, Jolly,
yo,
after this is over, man, send me your info because I want to be a part of that as well.
Absolutely, I got you.
okay. And Jolly, man, thanks again for joining us, man. It's really been a pleasure. It's been a nice, spirited conversation. We learned, you learned, we really enjoyed it.
Learn from each other. Absolutely. I appreciate
Absolutely, absolutely. So hopefully this won't be the
everybody,
last.
thank you for joining us, and we hope you enjoyed our conversation. You can find our podcast if you missed it, or if you want to see it again on realbrotherslive.com. It's also available on our Facebook group and also on our YouTube page. So please subscribe, and we'll see you next time. And hope you got something out of this. Got any last words, Stace?
Yeah, no, just enjoyed the conversation. I hope you did also. Don't forget you could catch us on all of the major platforms. We're now also on iTunes, right?
Yep.
Well,
yeah, we're on all the major
please
platforms.
subscribe. Thank you for tuning in.
Before I leave, I'm gonna get yelled at if I don't say it. Shout out to my brothers, my sisters that are watching this: Tasha, Sierra, Travis, Tevin.
All right.
I appreciate you guys tuning in. That's my family.
Your family is our
my
family.
family always supports me. My family always supports me, so I appreciate that.
Nice.
All right.
All right. Take care.